I took the risk of getting out of a corporate job. I took the risk of joining a small company in my early 30s. Those risks I think paid off. You don't do it because you want to just make some money out of it. You do it because you're passionate and you want to create an impact. I think introspection is extremely important. They say it's like, you hit a wall. But most people don't realize that they've hit a wall. They just keep banging against the wall. But if you step back, you might see that there is an opening on the other side. And you could have taken that opening long time back. So at least now it gives you an opportunity to take that opening.
Are they ready to make that shift or pivot, change themselves, start afresh? If you go down a couple of steps or you are going for a renegotiated package, it is an investment for yourself. Unless you learn that, it's going to be difficult.
Hello everyone, I'm Govind, a mid-30s entrepreneur. The age 30 to 40 is crucial for everyone. There are a lot of dreams, a lot of aspirations and a lot of goals. But this is the age where there are a lot of uncertainties and lack of clarity towards one's goals. This is a stage where in our professional lives, where we transition from early career to entrepreneurship or any other streams. During the early part of our career, we had mentors, alumni networks, or structured support to help us propel forward. But as we moved into the next stage of our professional life, the support system slowly fades. This stage brings a lot of uncertainties. There is no straightforward roadmap. There is lack of clarity in achieving the goals. And there is a looming risk. One might even lose his sense of purpose, affecting his well-being. There are three scary trends that caught my attention. One, over 68% of the professionals in this age group felt they are stuck in their role. Over 50% of the entrepreneurs, they either pivot or exit within just 5 years from creating the company due to lack of clarity in the goals. And the most alarming fact of all is, companies across globe, over 20% of companies across globe are trying to flatten their hierarchy with AI. This could potentially eliminate over 50% of the positions occupied by the people in the age group 30 to 40. This phase, if not traversed carefully, can lead to personal and professional derailment. Yet, this is a phase that has been navigated in a phenomenal way by exemplary leaders. And today, we have two people who have navigated this path and have come out of exemplary leaders. I have Mr. Arun Bala and Mr. Venkatesh with me. I'm extremely happy to host them today. To give a brief about Arun Bala is an award-winning CEO. He is globally known for scaling companies. And then we have Mr. Venkatesh, who is a veteran in the IT industry, who has been in multiple sectors like consultation, operations, solutions, and has now recently forayed into the food industry. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce my guests for the day, Mr. Arun Bala and Mr. Venkatesh, and I would like to know more about them, on their experiences and the paths that they have traveled. I'm extremely happy to have you both here. I've heard about both of you and I've been engaged with both of you as well. I understand your experiences really well. But before we get into more questions, I would like to know more about you, your experiences, how you navigated your 30s and 40s, and how you came up here. So I'd like to start with Venkatesh. Know more about your experience and take the conversation forward.
Firstly, happy evening, Govind, and happy evening, Arun. Nice to be here, and thanks for inviting me for this discussion. Talking about how I navigated or what happened, I would say kind of roller coaster. Interestingly, because I can take back a couple of decades, right? I mean, I always wanted to be in sports at some point of time. That used to attract me quite a lot. Academically, I was doing pretty decently, and somehow I went into the professional line, and that clicked, and went through that. So, in fact, before joining MNCs, I had also cleared government jobs, and we were at some point of time discussing some of these, right? And those days, government jobs was like, yeah, the thing we should do. So I was kind of rebellion at home that time. So yeah, I always wanted to be of my own, and that's how I took up the journey for my CA and other things. And then, yeah, of course, I built it. Interestingly, one anecdotal that I would like to highlight is when I wanted to do CA, etc., at home there was full support. And I had told my parents that other than the initial registration deposit, etc., I am not going to come back and ask for more. I will try and see if I can stand off my own, test the waters, and also that will be self reflection if I am really being adamant or I can do something. It turned out to be pretty good. Probably I was lucky or blessed as well, but I think, and that gave me really confidence. Yes, if I were to do something, because I was able to sustain myself as well my academics, and yeah, then it so happened I incidentally landed in Bangalore. I have been in most part of India, either through education or for other things, and then landed here with no idea for joining any job or etc. In fact, till I joined Accenture, I didn't even realize we need to have some such strong mentors, etc., or who can help you in self-reflection on what your strengths are, or what where you need to work on, etc. Uh, in a way, I had a person whom I respect till date, one Mr. Adiga, who was my, I could say, he helped me champion my cause. But that was far behind in India Info.com, my first job. Then Accenture. Then slowly I started learning the, the methodologies, the work culture, the corporates, and how it really functions. And luckily enough, I was put into the projects which were always on limelight, or where I had to, even from the junior entry level, always I had that open door to walk in to talk to the senior directors. They used to come and review the processes and what's happening with the client and various metrics numbers, as you know. That started giving me more and more confidence, right? And then there were a lot of initiatives where they started putting me, and then I also started taking in more because I felt confident about it and I did pretty good job about it. So those kind of reflections, and in between whatever were the feedbacks for course corrections, how I could improvise or improve, and then putting on to some of the challenging tasks that I took as a recognition, and coming successfully out of those started giving me that confidence. But I would say, yeah, reflecting, course correction, being adaptable to situations did help me. But I always had that in me that at some point in time, I wanted to take that plunge. Interesting enough, 2007-8 itself, I wanted to come out of corporate after having worked for almost 7-8 years that time itself. But different situations, different things, so we had to move on, and then established. And career also took a good for good reasons. It took me to different places, different clients, different industries. So I thought I will for a while understand how things operate and the nuances and the dynamics of how things happen or how to make things happen, right? And then slowly, steadily, I was also doing the study. My passion area has been right from hydroponics, agriculture to food, etc. There are two passions I pursue even today, and one passion I made my entrepreneurship business, which is food industry. The other is share market. These two are always my somehow some magnetic stuff, I would say. So yeah, so at some point of time I wanted to make that decision. So yeah, I then 2007-8 did not happen. 14-15 there was kind of wanted to do, but now this time I made sure last year, etc., that I made sure that no more trying to test the waters, etc., just get into it. So yeah, that's been the journey.
So great, Venkatesh. That's been like, new batsman getting acquainted to the fast bowlers like Courtney Walsh, Ambrose. And then, he grows up in confidence. And now, okay, I'm now ready to face the delivery and I can lead the innings from that. Impressive indeed. I would like to know more about Arun Bala and, take the conversation forward, because I believe there are certain areas which both of you can bring us some immense insights which would be of help. Yeah, over to you, Arun.
Yeah, thanks, Govind. Thanks for setting up this podcast, and thanks for inviting me for the podcast as well. Um, I would say, my journey until my early 30s was spent in large corporates. And I would say that was largely uneventful. And I'm not blaming the environment in large corporates or whatever. It's probably the way I engaged with others in the large corporates. Um, but what I did after my 30s was a couple of things. And I think these two things really helped me onward and also have helped me even as on date, right? The first thing is, I wanted to take some risks, right? And I took the risk of getting out of a corporate job. I took the risk of joining a small company in my early 30s. Okay, that's one major risk that I took. I mean, looking back, it was a risk at that point. The second risk that I had taken was, I don't know, I mean, depends on your perspective. You could call it a risk, you could call it a great opportunity. But I got an opportunity to move to the US, and this was in my late 20s. So I spent 2 years in the US. Strangely enough, unlike most people, I was not very happy with with a few things in the US. So I decided to come back, and then there was a move to UK. But I wanted to get the global exposure at that stage, right? So late 30s and late 20s and early 30s, I decided to make that switch. The first switch was global exposure, going to the US first and then to UK. The second major pivot that I did was shifting from a large corporate when I was working in UK to a small company. I wouldn't say a much smaller company, but a real small company. And that was a big risk, given the fact that I just recently moved to UK, and I had a family with 2 young children. Not a mortgage at that stage, but my rent and bills and utilities had to be paid anyway. So I had taken that risk, and those risks I think paid off. They have paid off because I have been doing a few pivots after that. But the experience that I've gained out of working for mid-size, small companies has indeed helped me quite a lot. And the global exposure, absolutely nothing to beat that global exposure, right? Experienced what the Middle East market is like, experienced what UK and Europe is like, spent a fair amount of time out of Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, France. I know what the culture, the work culture in each one of those countries in Europe is, right? And every country is different. Every single country is different. I remember my very first meeting with a person called Jan. And I'll never forget this discussion. So this was my first discussion. I landed in Amsterdam, and he took me around. So the idea was to work with him as a partner for the business that I was working with. And so the first thing Jan said is, we Dutch are direct, and we are not like the English. So that was a discovery for me, right? So, and I tried to understand what really he meant by that, and I developed a clear understanding as I started to work with him and continued working with him and a few others in the Netherlands. So very rich experience, getting to understand cultures in different parts of the world, getting to understand how people engage in the business world, how they, how cultures matter quite a lot, and how cultures, the local cultures impact work cultures. And of course, working for a small company or a mid-sized company, trying to grow the company, trying to grow the business, scale the business, that experience has been invaluable. So I would say those pivots and the risk that I decided to take, that is probably what has helped me through my journey.
Great, Arun. So, Arun and Venkatesh, what I see is there's a beautiful landscape picture, but I think once when you zoom into the picture, you would be able to see there are some parts, there are some parts where something is missing. So, as you said, Arun, I would like to start with you. So, there were risks that you took. So, when you took that risk, what convinced you to take that risk? And how were you able to mitigate that risk? Because at that point of time, both of you were in a stage where you had your kids, you have just now started your career. What convinced you to take it? And how did you mitigate it?
Yeah, very good question, Govind. I think this is probably the kind of question that every person between 30s and 40s would be asking himself. Um, the first and most important thing is to introspect, right? Step back for a bit. Understand what really is going on. Because like I told you, I was not very happy working with the corporates. Felt a little suffocated. There's always been a bit of that entrepreneurship in me right since the beginning. And what I mean by entrepreneurship is not necessarily, taking that huge risk and setting up a business. But entrepreneurship in terms of taking accountability, taking ownership, driving your own initiatives, and in certain cases doing a lot more than what is expected of you. So not just walking the extra mile, but walking extra, 100 miles. So I thought it was very difficult for me to do that in those corporates. So I believe, people who are ambitious, people who have a belly, real fire in their belly, there could be some choking points working in corporates. So now the desire to do something different, the desire to walk that extra mile, I could have done it only by getting out of the corporate. Now, the decision to get global exposure is something which I indeed saw as an opportunity, and I wanted to do that. I definitely wanted to do that for at least about 4 or 5 years since I started the global journey. And the reason for that, and I believe at some stage, each and every individual will need some kind of global exposure. It doesn't have to be, staying in a place, living in a place. It could be, like what Venkatesh has done. So he's traveled all across the globe, and that experience would have been rich. So I think it's necessary for people to do that, because that gives you a different perspective. It gives you the kind of perspective which will open your mind to new ideas, to new cultures, and those ideas and the what you do about the culture can be indeed mapped to, for example, how Indian corporates work or Indian companies work, small and medium-sized companies. What are their challenges, and how can you apply some of what happens in other parts of the world? How can you apply it here? In fact, I firmly believe in the fact that if you are working in the retail industry, nothing should prevent you from recruiting a few people from an industry which is not retail, which is anything other than retail. Because these people, they would come with some fresh perspectives and fresh ideas, which can be hugely beneficial for retail, right? So, not working to set models, not working within a paradigm, not thinking within a box. I mean, these are things which really helped me in my early 30s after moving to UK.
Great, Arun. So, getting to Venkatesh. Again, Venkatesh, when I look at your career, it has been like, you have been pivoting at various points so that you are able to make the next leap. And now you have made the ultimate leap of being an entrepreneur in the food space. So, every entrepreneur as Arun had pointed out, it is important to, being open-minded, ability to appreciate new perspectives. So when were you able to appreciate that point? Yeah, this is required to have this kind of a perspective so that I can become an entrepreneur. Was there a point where you realized, yeah, these things I need to have to become an entrepreneur? What were they?
Very important question. I'm glad that you asked that question, Govind, because one is when we are doing well or when we are able to meet our whatever the small set goals for our milestones for our careers or personal life, when we start doing that, we and that happens with organizations also. The the to set back to step back and relook at the things at that point of time when you are at hitting your pinnacle is something that consciously, if it is not done, then it becomes a bigger challenge, because at some point of time the law of averages starts catching up, right? So what I consciously do, and I think and this also becomes a challenge when a person is in their mid 30s or early 40s, or when that career needs to take that shift. What happens is when you are either hitting success or not hitting success, one point is self reflection, right? Do a proper study of self reflection to understand what all have been your strengths thus far, and keeping the change. See, change is very fast paced, right? I'm not talking only about AI or technology, even otherwise culturally also we are talking about that, right? So I think things change much faster than what we think, and we don't know world might be observing us. We ourselves think only to that particular directed person or that particular task is what. No, everyone at every moment are always watching you, so there is always something to learn or gain. So that self reflection and being open to accept certain things that you have to either incorporate or do away with for you to go to next step, that's important. That's where the adaptability comes, which I was referring earlier. Unless you are open minded, or that's the mindset, right? Unless you are open minded to take in the feedback or be the critic for yourself against the task that you are putting up yourself for, the goals that you are setting up yourselves for, that becomes a challenge. So I did that. I very meticulously, what I do is uh, not like a note every day, but I do jot down some critical events that have occurred. It might be good or it might not be good. It might be a changing milestone kind of thing, or even otherwise on day-to-day life. So when I reflect back for the week, well, we do the task, we do the actions. Then for the week, when I see what was that moment, which was like a aha moment for me, or which was like a oops moment, right? And where I could have done little differently, it could have taken me to a different tangent. So those small nuggets, we can learn that from life at every stage, not only from a professional life. A lot of things what we bring to front, either our leadership qualities, trait, or whatever, has to do with lot of our how we have adopted the backgrounds from where we come from, right? So I think that in a way helps us. Every moment that you think that as a learning is a continuous process. Unless you take life challenges as a learning, I think that moment of self reflection or change will not come. Of course, we need to bounce off ideas with our people whom we trust with, our mentors we need to have to be on our side, and goals we need to see. All that comes at some point of time. I can say that the culture from where we come specifically is, risk taking appetite is, needs lot more focus, especially in India. I mean, I'm glad that so many startups are coming up now, and unicorns are coming up, etc. We are still catching the tail. I think we have a long journey ahead before we can say yes. Culture shift is happening and people are looking from that perspective. And also I'm glad that new generation is started looking from that perspective, where where they want to do something of their own, right? This gig economy is all about that, right? So I think I'm glad that that's happening. But for us, making that shift was very difficult as well. I would not say it was just like, okay, I do this, then someday I think I come. It was difficult, but it is the mindset that we need to constantly challenge ourselves. Is this what I wanted to do, or I wanted to do something different? Giving it can be giving back to society, or my passion or interest, putting that to life by jumping into a business or into some sort of that kind of things. There are multiple things, risk definitely, and actions to course correct that's essential. Mentor, I think, is another important factor. And see what happens when you hit 30s, mid 30s, early 40s, one decade of journey is done in corporate, you start becoming little comfortable. You get into a comfortable zone, some known feedbacks, some known projects, some known processes. In A company, or you go to B company, or you move around in C company, all that stuff, company to company jump. But before it becomes too late, if we don't self reflect, if we don't get to a point where we start thinking, what is the value addition I'm bringing to myself? Forget about the company. Companies will give you the task, they will give you the metrics. So far, you make it green and go beyond the green metrics. You will be exceeding expectations and life moves on. But is it that what we wanted to do? And that struck me, right? 37, 38, 40, around that age period. Like, yes, I have come this far, and I know I am doing pretty fine in corporate. I am in good race there. What beyond this is this started? Then when I started looking 3 or 4 years down the line, I could sense that yes, I'm going to hit a stagnation point. Then confronting stagnation, better than that, start preparing for that from now, right? So, and then am I going to enjoy what I'm doing now 4 years or 5 years from now? Or in the back of my mind, I always had that I wanted to do something else, but our compromise is the right time to switch back or go back. Of course, we have our limitations in terms of whatever we have, our liabilities or family matters and other things, but how we can see balance and still take that forward, that's that. So those hard thoughts have to be done. We have to have, that's why we need to have a good mentor or someone where we can bounce off all that as well, to a large extent, if not fully. But I think those are the important things, and I'm glad I did that. And then I could visualize where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and gradually I made that change. I did test waters for few years as well. It was not that sudden sporadic something. Life doesn't work that way. So we need to be little bit of calculation back, back of your head, envelope calculation, and some hardcore calculations as well we need to keep, and test waters before we get into.
Got it.
And even now, like my business partner, I consider him as my mentor. I mean, we both have done the journey together. We were almost same age group, same this one, in terms of our corporate journeys, etc. Of course, from different organizations. But he is really specialized in this industry where I am right now, right? Food industry. Nothing wrong in picking up. There's no age limit where you can say, I will stop learning or picking up, right? So that openness is required, Govind, to answer you.
So, from the points that you and Arun had posted, what I see is there are two things that are coming out very solidly. One is the ability to take risks. Second is the ability and the need for introspection. But this cannot happen at the end or in the late 40s. It has to be fast tracked. How do you think can it be fast tracked, Arun, in this case?
No, I don't think, it has to happen naturally, right?
Okay.
There comes a point when people feel stuck, right? People might feel stuck even as an entrepreneur. I mean, growth might stagnate. There might be, the organization may be unable to acquire new customers. It is possible that the organization is not able to, even if the opportunities are available in the market, they are not able to deliver on them. So whether it is a CEO or it's an entrepreneur who's just started his entrepreneurship journey, or it is a senior person, I mean 30s to 40s I assume, the person would be a senior employee or a manager, mid-level manager, or in certain cases might even be a senior manager. Such people, only at a point when they feel stuck, I think there is a need for them to step back and do some introspection. Now, what do I mean by feeling stuck? Feeling stuck is about you wondering whether you're doing the right thing. Feeling stuck is about waking up in the morning, not wanting to go to work. Feeling stuck is about waking up in the morning and wondering, why am I working here, right? When it comes to that point, I think there is a need to, I don't think, people should just accept the reality of that situation and decide to make a change. The change could be to themselves, or the change could be about getting out of that situation, which means you pivot, you do something else. But I would say there are three things that an individual needs to do, and I firmly believe in this. The first is be self-aware. So do an assessment of yourself. Understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Understand how your strengths map to certain opportunities that are available in the market. What are the imminent threats that you might face within the organization that you're working in? Or what are the threats that you might face in the industry that you're working in? So I know of a few people who started, for example, there is this gentleman who started in a manufacturing industry, was not happy with the industry, not happy with the job, decided to switch. And I'm talking about early 20s, early 2000, or maybe towards the later part of 2007 or 2008. So this individual decided to pivot, got into the technology industry after acquiring some skills, and the person did extremely well. I mean, admire such individuals who boldly decide to leave what they're doing and decide to do something totally different, right? So it comes from, number one, an assessment of the situation, assessment of yourself, understand what your core skills are. So do some kind of an inventory of your skills. We've been discussing in the past, I call it a capability assessment. So what is your capability? What is your DNA? Understand what really you're passionate about. And I admire what Venkatesh has done, right? I mean, he was in Accenture, doing extremely well in Accenture. Obviously, going up the ladder in Accenture, but he decided to leave that for his passion, right? So passion makes a lot of difference. And I was going to talk about a few other individuals as well. But there are several examples of how people follow their passion. So discovery of the passion and trying to do something about it, trying to see how you can create an impact in the world with what you're passionate about, and of course also monetize it, provided you have the core capability to do that. I think that's the second thing that comes out of self-awareness. What is your purpose? What are you passionate about? And the third thing, which I believe is equally important when it comes to introspection, is try to see what kind of a role really fits you. I mean, do you really want to be a leader? Do you know what comes with having to be a leader? Do you want to move into a different industry? Do you want to become an expert? You become a subject matter expert, you acquire some skills, you become a subject matter expert, go deep into that subject, and just do some consulting or help other organizations with the deep skills that you have. So there are several options for you to consider, and that is the third thing that needs to come out of the introspection, right? So first is do a complete diagnosis of yourself. Second is understand what your purpose is, what your passion is. The third thing is set a vision for yourself. Say, this is where I want to get to. and finally set the direction for that. And there are several options, right? It's like you're at a junction, you don't know which road to take. Then you check with Google Maps and it tells you, yeah, this is the direction that you need to take. So that's what introspection helps you with. And I think that stepping back, I always say it's like, you've hit a wall. But most people don't realize that they've hit a wall. They just keep banging against the wall. You keep doing that. But if you step back, you might see that there is an opening on the other side. And you could have taken that opening long time back. So at least now it gives you an opportunity to take that opening, not continue to bang yourself against the wall, and take that route. So very well said, Govind. I think introspection is extremely important. And I think that's what has led Venkatesh also to pursue his passion. He's doing it
True.
brilliantly, right?
So this might be a rhetorical question. Obviously, you need to realize that, yeah, I have hit a wall. Then only the introspection starts. So how can, you make it happen? To realize, yeah, I have hit a wall and, I have to do something about it. Because this is a very critical point, because everybody, most of the entrepreneurs, most of the professionals, they, go with an attitude, never give up. But this time you have to pivot because you have hit a wall. So what do you think can be done to make them realize it can be something done? Because these are wonderful individuals, wonderful entrepreneurs.
So
They are just, one step away from greatness.
I mean, this is just one point, right? I mean, I think the focus does not necessarily have to be on being an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the risk-taking ability. And being an entrepreneur is not just about taking a risk, right? So I'm sorry I stepped in possibly out of turn, but I just wanted to make a point here. After the introspection, one might realize that you actually want to continue doing this, but there is a different way in which you can do it, and you can get to leadership positions within the same organization by doing things differently. So your SWOT analysis, right, the self-diagnosis, the understanding of what your passion is, the purpose is, it can lead you back to the same thing. So I might say, look, I want to continue to work in Accenture, okay, and I want to pursue a track to get to leadership,
Got it.
whatever the title may be, right? So you could do that. You might just decide to help a few people, consulting, etc., or become an entrepreneur. But the most important point there, Govind, is you don't do it because you want to just make some money out of it. You do it because you're passionate and you want to create an impact.
I think I concur to that point, and I wanted to interject on the same point. See, not necessarily when we say either take risk for the sake of taking risk or just coming out. Being in the organizations, see, it's quite possible someone has hit just a small roadblock. They are doing well, needs bit of course correction or tap on the back or a mentor who can take them further, right? So not at every point of time they need to think of switching or whatever. They can still do well in the same organizations, or if they have some higher aspirations, someone else is picking them, they can still do there. It's about realizing when you have hit a pause button, how to come out of it, and that takes, believe me, that takes quite a effort, because howsoever people may say or your well-wishers might say, the point is unless you realize and you accept that fact, two steps, realizing and then accepting that fact, and third is do something about it. Unless you do that, whatever you do, it's not going to happen. 9/10 even in India, 9/10 which is 90% plus, still are all job goers. I mean, to your point, we are talking about MSMEs, unicorns, startups and all that. It might still be a very limited. So it's a very, very small percentage, right? I mean, we want people to do, but at the same time, giant corporates are also running. So how within that organization, and I had that good opportunity, I think it was a great example within the same organization, how I can do different roles, different industries, different roles or different functions. that gave those perspectives. It helped me make myself a stronger individual. When I say stronger individual, to me the definition is appreciating and accepting that there will always be change. Then how fast I can adapt myself to that change, how resilient I am to make that change as an opportunity for me or adversities for me to come ahead. I think COVID was a great example how people survived, and especially India did really well, I think. So that resilience, my theme has been simple: fail first, fail fast, right? That gives you the opportunity to bounce back faster. So the reaction time to bounce back is what matters. That's where the true leadership comes through. So that's what I wanted to add to your point.
So,
Sorry if I may just add
One more thing. See, the concept of linear growth or linear promotions is no more existent. Right? That's gone long back, about a decade back. Now, either you are there, you are able to bring that value, you keep growing. If you are of your own entrepreneur or in an organization, doesn't matter. What is that you bring to table as a value or as a differentiator? That is what is going to be counted, right? Irrespective of the other things. What is the experience you are able to give in whichever domain or field you are in, or whichever industry you are into? That's fun. So that linearity thing is gone. That's why people have started taking the backstep and started looking into the steps and all that. And to do that, there are multiple ways. Either as an expert route I go, managerial route I go, or whatever. So, and that's where that loyalty, see, that generation gaps comes from there, right? So, you see our parents, 40 to 60 years serving in organization, government, and all that was gone. By our generation, we wanted to come out of that and work in MNCs and have a good life with all the pomp and glory and the highlights, right? So, but if you look at our children or the budding generation, very clear in that thought process what is that we want to do. That's what the gig economy is kicking in. That is where all those other lot of opportunities are coming up, which is not so much visible. But as we see another 5 to 7 years, we will see quite a lot of that. And given that in India, such a young, aging population still, immense potential. In every field, there's immense potential. It's just that you need to tap that and move on. So, I think to your point, no one particular way, or people have started, now to keep aside looking only at the linear growth. So that's almost a decade back. That's now almost a dead thing. People look into various aspects. Sorry, everyone.
Sure.
But I thought that was valid.
That's an important point. That's an important point. So I was just going to say there are 5 things that we need to understand. Right? The first is we talk about introspection. Introspection is essential at every stage of your life. Right? Introspection not just with regards to your career, but your personal life. What are you doing? Right? Where are you? And your purpose, defining your purpose, understanding where you are, what you're doing. That's extremely important, and you need to identify the wall that you've actually hit against. So whether you're stuck or not, okay, that's the first point. But whether you're stuck or not, whether you feel stuck or not, there are 4 essential elements I would say, and I'm talking about fairly large organizations and even mid-sized organizations which have grown to a certain extent. Those 4 aspects are: number 1, I think alignment is extremely important. Alignment with the values of the organization, alignment with the vision, the goals, and what the leadership actually wants to achieve, what their priorities are. For example, if for an organization, the priority during that period, whether you like it or not, the priority during that period is profitability, you have to align with profitability. There are some people who would not be able to see what the expectation of leadership is, and they would not be able to align. So understand what leadership wants, because one needs to understand that in a large organization or a largish mid-sized organization, there could be pressure that the leadership is also under, right? To deliver numbers, to acquire more customers, or whatever that could be, right? So alignment with the values, alignment with the purpose of the organization is important. But what is also important is understanding what the expectations are. And that could vary quarter on quarter, right? If you resist or if you are not aligned, then I don't think you would be able to gain any favors with the leadership. Okay, that's number one. And I'm just being pragmatic about this. The second important point is, again, this comes out of the introspection that you do, knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, and work on them. Work on them because it is easy to blame the organization. It is easy to blame what's happening in the company. But you need to also introspect and understand what might be your weakness, which is probably contributing to what's happening in the organization. So that's the second thing, and that will open up new avenues and new doors for you. And the third is, and I think this is equally important or more important, is being until a certain stage, you have been a doer, right? When you move into middle management, there is a shift. Most people are not able to navigate the shift, and what they end up doing is they become people managers. They become managers of tasks. Okay, these are the instructions to the team. This is what you need to do because I have been asked to do this. They fail to see the big picture themselves. So where is the question of the team seeing the big picture? So see the big picture and be value focused. And this is what you were also mentioning. Be value focused rather than task focused or focused on people management. People don't need to be managed. Yeah? People have to be led. And so people management is something that has to go, has to be replaced by a focus on value. The fourth item, the first was, like I said, the introspection. The fourth item, and I would say these are in the order of priority, but the fourth item is being outcome focused. Again, this comes from developing an understanding of what leadership wants, right? Nothing works unless you align with the leadership, understand what leadership wants, and align with that. I'm saying you need to ask questions, you need to challenge, you need to. I don't want you to just. I'm not suggesting that people should just take instructions from the leadership. But alignment is different, right? It's like you understand the expectations of the customers, also understand the expectations of your leaders, and be outcome focused. Right? So those are the four things that I would say, in addition to introspection, which is important for leadership. And I agree with Venkatesh, it's not linear anymore. And I think it's good that it is not linear anymore. One needs to identify the wall, get around it, and reskill, do whatever is necessary. But these 4 points are important.
Still, the organizations are also becoming pretty flat for multiple reasons, right? The adoption of technology or we becoming price competitive or other dynamics that revolves around. So it's step by step, it's no more relevant in the current game of things.
That's an interesting point. NVIDIA, not sure if you're aware of it. Jensen has 50 reports. It's unheard of. If you speak to any of the management groups, they'll tell you 7 or 8 people need to report to you. Having more than 7 or 8 direct reportees will not be effective management. But NVIDIA is the biggest and the richest organization in terms of market cap in the world, right? And they are running on the basis of 50 people reporting into. So, talking about flat structures, 50 people reporting into Jensen. So, models are going to change. People are also talking about a $1 billion, 1% unicorn, right? So, it is a disruptive phase that every single industry is going through. And AI is creating a lot of disruption. Sorry?
I was alluding towards that example, and that's what I meant when I said organizations are flat. As the latest book section.
So this is one of the recent things that have been happening. Of course, there have been good things, but there are things like layoffs happening. People who are getting stagnated in their role.
Here I would want to know, it should be of help to multiple people. You have been as leaders, been able to recruit some phenomenal senior leaders and mid-management leaders. So when you were recruiting them for your companies, what were you looking out for? How did you, assign the role? How did you kind of model the role? I would like to know about it because I think that is crucial. Because many people are now going to go into the market and apply for new jobs, and apply for better opportunities. So it would be better to know more of that topic.
I would say this is a very difficult area, right? And I wouldn't say I've got it right. I've made a few mistakes. Recruiting the right person, I believe, requires, especially in a mid-sized organization, requires a clear alignment with the culture of the organization and with the values of the organization. And the second thing is what, I believe, especially mid-sized organizations, what destroys them is silos. So every single person who's a mid-level manager or a leader builds a fiefdom, right? And these silos act in dissonance with each other. So there is absolutely no confluence of positive forces if you were to look at leadership or mid management being positive forces, and the confluence of positive forces is what you would expect for an organization to leap forward to the next lead. Instead, this dissonance causes several parts of the organization to literally fight with each other. And people who can work with everyone in the organization, people who can take accountability, people who can also align with the values and the culture of the organization, and more importantly, align with what actually the leadership or the organization wants to do. I think that's extremely important. So it is not easy to make a judgment and say, who is fit for this role and who is not. So some mistakes might be made, but the mistakes have to be corrected as early as possible.
I'm glad that you brought that question. I really appreciate the openness with which you spoke about that one, because I'll tell you, at the entry level, there is a different criteria. 2-3 years when a person comes in, the 2-3 years experience, that's a different criteria. If we are looking at a segment now whose jobs will be displaced pretty soon, those are the people who are in that 10 to 15 to 20 years age of their job, which means late 30s, early 40s, all of them. That in, I don't know, it's a paradox, right? In a way, they are the most important people when it comes to driving initiatives or customer facing or for employees and all that. But at the same time, they also are the soft targets when organizations are doing resizing or adoption of technologies, because that is the group which is very resistant as well to your point learning and then. So in market, now we will see more and more of such section of people coming out to market for applying, and the judiciousness with which the person who is recruiting, first that person needs to have that clarity and the goal, what is that they want to do, if that person aligns. And of course, we see the skills, etc. Attitude, mindset does matter quite a lot. What is the purpose with which the person comes for applying a job? Is it just that okay, instead of A, I have a B company with a different tag, every month I get a salary, I have my stuffs and I do. Well, that is important for life. But is that something that they want to bring as a differentiator for themselves? Is there a learning that they are looking for or scouting out for? Are they ready to make that shift or pivot, change themselves, start afresh, and are not flustered saying that, oh, you have come 2 steps down or 2 steps, whatever is it? Are they ready to? It is investment. If you go down a couple of steps or you are going for a renegotiated package, it is an investment for yourself. Unless you learn that, it's going to be difficult. So that's what I would put it to.
In fact, rolling back the conversation that you had with that, you said you were fortunate enough to have a mentor at one point. And whatever you're saying right now about Arun and you, I think this requires more than, there's a helping hand or there should be some guidance that is required. So, who do you think these people can get to those mentors, or is there any way that they can get?
There's a concept called as weak ties, if I may try to.
Yeah, sure.
There's a concept called as weak ties. Right? What is weak ties? We all have heard this buzzword of networking, collaboration, social, etc. But within that also, it's a human tendency. We can choose with someone you are comfortable, you start talking or you start doing business with them, or in corporate scenario also you share, the experiences, etc. There are a lot of untapped areas, right? So the weak ties are such where you have to first strengthen all your network, just not one dimensional or where you are comfortable with. You have to spread. That comes with conscious effort. Nothing can replace that. Whatever books I read, or unless I step out and I do that, it's not going to happen. Once you start developing that, you will find multiple scenarios, right? And multiple people with different visions, thoughts, etc. That will start helping you to align to the points, and you will find a person whom you can trust, and that person might also find a trustworthy person in you to be engaging with. Who knows? I go and scout for a mentor. I myself might be a mentor to a few other folks as well. I mean, it's all about having a network which is developed and we use those channels. Network is again one of the most abused words because in socials, networks, etc. we keep talking. Business scenarios also there are so many forums where we talk about networking. Networking really means actually looking into the weak ties and start building those. Opportunities are everywhere. So that's how it comes. That's how I got it actually.
Just another point to add. So, I mean, you perfectly responded to your question, but the one thing that I would add is you need to keep an open mind, right? And an open mind to have someone at least act as a sounding board, right? The person may not actually give you some suggestions or advice, but just having somebody act as a sounding board can have immense benefits, right? So you need to have an open mind, and I believe the right mentor will appear in front of you. And I agree with Venkatesh on the concept of the network, right? So if you have a network and you are networked with a number of people, there is someone who you would be referred to, or somebody that would appear in front of you. But you need to keep an open mind, and you need to want to be coached, right? Because not everybody is perfect, and it always helps to have a different perspective, which is different to yours. So that's all I would say.
So, most of the entrepreneurs, people who are listening into entrepreneurship, they may not have the resources to hire the right people at the right price, in the right qualifications. So, and it is extremely crucial because, as Arun pointed out, accountability is the most important thing. So, in this case, what do you think a mid-sized company or a small-sized company will be able to hire the right people for their company so that they will be able to not just do it, but to scale it to the next level? Will you take that first?
Yeah, so this challenge is always going to be there, right? Because it's a balance sheet item, both in terms of human resources as well as in terms of the cash flow. Now, there are at least two ways to look at it. One is I look that as an investment, right? I pick a person whose attitude is great, ready to learn, skills I can provide, and when I say I, as in the company, can always help them with. And there are so many beautiful learning courses in all the organizations. I'm not saying one or two. Even in mid-size, we talk about my own industry where I've got into, and I think it has matured so much. If you go to some of the nice sizable ones, in front of the SOPs and DTPs written in, so it has penetrated. So what I mean to say is, right mindset and attitude can always coach or train the person's skills. So I look more as an investment in the person who is there at a critical juncture when I want to step up. I mean, he or she looks as a springboard, right? Similarly, for the growth of the organization, organizations also look up to them, where their leverage can come into play, and they can move ahead. So I think mindset, attitude is what we look at. Skills we can develop. Of course, relevance in the domain and industry is important. These are some of the factors. There is no one particular way to look at compensation. Howsoever we give, that's not always. There will be a B or a C or X or a Y. I pay this much. The other competitors, this, that's always going to be the thing. But how you are able to convince the person of what they are going to get out of joining your organization in terms of so here I'm not only talking about compensation, work-life balance, etc. That's written to that those topics, right? If I'm able to generate value for myself, if I'm able to stand for my self-respect, if my presence is being counted, if whatever effort I'm going to put in the organization is going to add value to the organization or to the customers to whom I'm going to serve, and if there is something I can give back to my subordinates or the employer, if we are able to talk about all that, of course, along with the other benefits, emoluments, etc., to large extent, people get motivated. I think the role has to be exciting. Otherwise, just cutting paychecks, they have 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, but beyond that, it will be difficult because we will always have those attritions and that cycle, churn, etc. Role has to be exciting for the person, and they should feel that there is an enhancement from where they are right now by taking up that role. It can be in any form. Someone wants a good state, someone wants skill development, whatever be the thing. If they feel that value, they will automatically get it. There are a lot of companies who don't pay very heavily against their competitors, but still people stick around. Still people stick around. So money is one aspect, but not the only aspect.
Yeah, so I think just recently there are 3 or 4 CEOs for who I helped in recruiting people at the leadership level. And I suppose, we're talking about 30s to 40s, that's the topic of conversation today. So we are obviously talking about recruiting into mid-management, or we are talking about recruiting into leadership roles. So all of these were for leadership roles. I was surprised with the clarity that some of them came in. The yardstick I would use is first define the role and the accountabilities. Many companies just recruit people without defining the role and the accountabilities, right? So is this the right person? And if this person is recruited into the organization, will this individual be able to take accountability for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? For example, if P&L is one of the responsibilities and the individual does not have experience in managing P&L, can the person be coached? Does the person demonstrate ownership behavior? Okay, so accountability, defining the role and the accountability very clearly is the first point. The second point is you're recruiting someone who could potentially grow into becoming a leader. Right? So look for leadership qualities. And I was actually amazed by how most of the people that I had discussed with were all within the organization, right? And they were recruited for this role. You don't necessarily have to only recruit from outside. You can recruit from within the organization as well, right? So all of them, in fact, the CEO also had a very different perspective about the individual who was being interviewed. Because that person was in a fairly junior role, I must say, and suddenly being interviewed for a leadership role, they made the cut. They were, of course, between 30 and 40. They made the cut because their listening skills were good. They seemed to be people who were empathetic. They seemed to be people who had compassion. They seemed to be people who were extremely good at solving problems. And these are some of the aspects that we discussed during there, and I just called it a discussion with that individual. So I would say look for leadership qualities, look for how the person can take care of those accountabilities, and the rest, in terms of upskilling the person, cross-skilling the person, or supporting the person, that is something that the organization can do. But if these two traits are there, I'm sure, the individual would play a very effective role growing up to leadership in the organization. Right?
So, so during the conversation, you said most of the people who are in the 30s to 40s, they move from individual contributors to people managers at one point of time. And at this stage, they would have to take some initiatives to prove themselves. They would have to, come up with initiatives which aligns with what the leadership wants to achieve. But easier said than done, because it has a lot of complexities. You have your cross-functional teams, you have other resources to allocate. So how does a manager, how can he take up these initiatives, as you cannot take up any big initiative immediately? So how does he need to slow with this?
I'm tempted to jump in and answer right away. I don't think it is about picking up initiatives and driving initiatives. I'm very clear about it, right? You don't have to drive initiatives. It is about a clear alignment with the goals and the expectations of the leadership. And if that alignment is clear, you would know what needs to be done. A very open, transparent, frequent communication. Don't just leave the onus on the leadership to communicate with you. You communicate with people in the leadership team. Most importantly, tell them, what challenges you are faced with, and tell them what is the solution. Don't just stop with the problems. Tell them what the challenges are. Tell them what the solution is. And tell them you can possibly solve the problem by doing this. Right? It could be a pilot engagement. It could be a full-fledged engagement or whatever. If you can drive it and you can solve the problem, that would help quite significantly. But sometimes, in fact, I've seen this in some organizations where people start to drive initiatives because they're frustrated with the leadership and the management for not having taken up these initiatives. But it ends up becoming their Waterloo.
True.
It becomes their Waterloo because they're not aligned with the leadership when they start driving these initiatives. I mean, that's my view. I think the point about initiatives, I think people are entrepreneurial. They want to take accountability. They want to make a difference, right? But just be aligned. Communicate very clearly. Tell them what the challenge is. Tell them what the solution is. Align with them and take up an initiative. Driving initiatives which sometimes may not be aligned, may not meet their expectation, and they may not be in approval of those initiatives. It will just backfire.
Or timing might be wrong.
The timing might be wrong as well, absolutely.
So I think so very, very succinctly put, I think there is another misconcept. If you have to grow from individual contributor, you have to become a manager or a people leader. No. So you can still be expert at your own domain and you can still be individual contributor at the highest level within the organization, right? That's also quite possible. Not everyone are meant for all the cuts within the organization, right? As an individual contributor person can still be a VP or a MD or whatever the fancy terms we have for the roles. And at the same time, a people manager can see. One is it depends on what are your traits, what are your qualities. Second is what you are good at. Right? If you try to force fit, and I have seen a lot of within the organizations, a lot of sections or a lot of teams going wrong because the expectation becomes very different, right? Oh, individual contributor, now I become a team leader or a manager, which means, oh no, I should be stepping away from the task or whatever. Now I have to just drive, right? That initiative, drive the productivity, bring in this ideation. Need not be the case, right? And the most important thing is, as you grow up the rank, you have to become much more humble and you have to be going further down to understand the problems and solve one. If you are going one step ahead, you should be going 2 levels down within the organization also to know what that person is facing as a challenge. Unless you are able to connect with that person, the last dot, it's going to be a challenge for any organization. So to say, IC or people manager or IC here is individual contributor or people managers, they have to make that cut to grow. I think that's a bit and very well put in terms of the initiative. So if you are aligned, what's there as an initiative? What you do is all the tasks that is aligned to the overall objective of the goal.
And I would say, mid-level managers aspiring to become leaders, right? The focus need not be on initiatives. So what one is trying to do with initiatives is trying to be different or trying to go that extra mile. I mean, it's purely about alignment, but more importantly, and I think this is what Venkatesh was also talking about, just being outcome focused, right? So at the end of the day, end of the quarter, end of the year, I have been able to deliver. That's adequate, right? If you have not been able to deliver, whatever the goals are, whatever the expectations are, no number of initiatives would really help you, get there. And being value focused, outcome focused, it's a fine balance between how you manage your manage the. I did not want consciously did not want to use the word people, because people management is something that I'm not particularly. I don't appreciate that. You have to take care of your people, but at the same time, you also need to take care of the stakeholders and the leaders, right? Their expectations. So that is where I think sometimes mid-level managers fail to see the big picture and do not seem to engage in a way in which they can align with the expectations of the leadership and deliver outcome and deliver value. So I think that's really.
I think you have hit it on the nail by not saying that word but making it very obvious. Managing. The moment you start managing, you are going in the wrong direction. Let's be very clear, because when you start doing managing people or managing leadership thoughts, that doesn't work, right? You need to guide, coach, or take along the team, whatever is the end objective on achieve. At the same time, when you are able to be a mirror to your leadership, that really works well, right? Rather than managing. To a large extent, it works, but yes, of course, not everyone are so open and transparent in practicing. But I think that works.
And see, one of the organizations that
If I may input there, I think you can give me an example.
I was just going to come to that, yeah. So there's an organization that I've just recently engaged with, right? So there's a CEO who's absolutely keen on growing the organization. They're struggling with a number of opportunities which they are not able to deliver, right? So it's not as if they're not able to generate leads. There are customers who are coming to them with business. They're not able to deliver on that. What I've seen is there are 3 people at the next level of the organization, and a few people who are let's call them mid-level managers, for want of any other word. I've seen total cacophony. Right? I mean, they're totally in dissonance with each other. One of them wants to drive some initiatives. They all have the right intention, and their intention is to get this organization to grow. Their intention is to make this organization great, right? That's really what they want to do. But they want to do it in a way in which it is completely in dissonance with what the second manager or the second leader wants to do. What the second leader wants to do, the first one doesn't agree at all. Now this CEO is completely lost. He's completely lost because all 3 people at the leadership level are just not able to see eye to eye. The CEO is very clear about what he wants to do, what he wants to achieve. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's not about driving initiatives. It is not about anything other than delivering to the expectations on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis, consistently, and helping the leaders rather, achieve what the company's vision is, what the company's goals are, not just for now, but 7 years from now, 10 years from now, if a vision has been set, goals have been set, be aligned with those and with the values. So those are the qualities that I would look for.
So, we come to the next question. Every new manager or an aspiring professional who want to see themselves in a position where you have been. So, if you can give me one specific example from your own career, how you navigated the phase, which made you, determined, skyrocket your, it would be great to understand. As it gives a clarity on what challenges you faced, how you navigated it, and what was the impact that you created for the organization that you work for. Both of you.
Go first.
Then you
But this brings back to the question that we started with, right? I mean, do that introspection, make that change, and I think couple of other things as well. From an organization, from your individual point of view, you have to align exams. What should happen is you need to time. You need to time where you are able to come out of the theoretical stuff saying, okay, I wanted to do this, now I stand here, but it cannot be a 4-year, 5-year project always, right? You need to be right there, then and that, make that course correction, and be very judicious about what you are trying to do or what is that you want to achieve out of that. If the moment you start feeling stagnation, right? Stagnation means when the desire to come, or you feel the job is no more giving you energy, positive energy, or the job is no more giving you or building negativity. That means you have started hitting stagnation. Don't wait for a movement to occur. Then it will become much more hard hitting. I have seen my subordinates, I have seen how things are going around, right? Because of this. So circulation important, and learning, upskilling, and being aware of what's happening around within your organization, your surrounding. If you are in business, what's happening around in the world, aligning to those. There are all moving dynamics, right? Be it eco-geospace or for that matter within the organization itself, or even in the larger scene. So we need to always be aware of what's happening. There will be this little hints that will come through. No one will come with a mic and declare this you have and this. So we need to understand those pulse. Always keep your eyes and ears open, and don't burn bridges, right? You don't know when and where that network will come back. So, and then how you are able to, when a challenge is, when adversity comes through, how you make that as a opportunity for yourself, how quickly you rebounds, right? And the resilience. I think these are some of the aspects that organizations start looking into you when they are looking you as a prospective leader, right? So if you are able to make that shift fast and also able to coach or get someone who can step in your place, if no one is indispensable, right? If someone comes to your place and you are able to show these traits that I was talking about just now, I think then you are able to make the cut. More responsibilities will come, more challenges will come. Take challenges as in organization is giving you a recognition that you can handle. That's why more challenges are being thrown at you, or difficult accounts or difficult projects are thrown at you, right? So make the best out of it. Once you have proven that, then I think there's no stopping. At least that's what I have seen. My success or my lot of friends were successful because of those traits.
So I would just talk about two things, right? First is, like I mentioned previously in the conversation, discover your purpose, align with your purpose. It doesn't have to be about growth. It doesn't have to be about skyrocketing growth or meteoric growth. You should be happy doing what you're doing, right? It could be just a
Digit first. I look at the examples from your own
yeah. So I'm trying to respond to your question. by saying, where I disagree with you is, it doesn't have to be always about skyrocketing growth. And we are not talking about any one of us being role models. We're just trying to give our opinions on what people between the 30s and 40s should do. The first thing is, I would say, discover your purpose and do what you believe your purpose is, right? What you're passionate about. And that is what will give you happiness, right? And as a consequence, if you're doing something which doesn't pay you as much as you would have otherwise got paid, or you don't lead a growing organization, so be it. But you're passionate about what you're doing. The second thing I would say is, in my personal case, it was about taking some risks and pivoting. And I wouldn't say it is the same with everyone. Like is suggested previously, people stuck in organizations. There are three things that they can do. They can pursue on their path towards leadership in the same organization, or they can possibly move laterally to a different organization and then pursue the same path there. Second is, they could look at entrepreneurship. Or third is, again, discover your purpose and see what is the best thing that you can do. And you might discover that it is in a very different industry, it's in a very different area. You might actually discover your passion with photography. Obviously, when you talk about purpose, one important item there is monetizing it. You don't want to just follow passion where you cannot monetize it. So that's really what.
Session builder was indeed eye-opening. And there were points that were discussed. Was a much important point that had to be discussed. And what came out of it was, the risk-taking ability should be there with every individual, because when you are ready to take risks, your ability to take introspection, your ability to look at, have a second order thinking happens to you. And obviously, you should be ready to introspect yourselves, have an open-minded approach, so that you are able to take the feedbacks in a very constructive way and develop yourself. Third is, what I'm saying is, it is important to first see yourself how you are aligned to the vision of the organization, because only if you are able to align yourself with the organization, you will be able to take accountability on what you have to do, on how you can deliver value to the customers and the other stakeholders on board. And the last and foremost important thing is, yes, there will be changes, and these are some scary times as well with respect to the layoffs and people stagnating at their roles. But that doesn't mean that you have to completely come out of it, but there is a way out of it. Go and introspect yourself, see where you are, use your network, see how you can help you, talk to people to understand where you can go wrong and what you have to do next. I think these are some really important points, and this should definitely help people. And because I feel it has definitely helped me, and it has opened my mind as well. So it was great talking to you again. Thanks for making it here. Thank you.
Thank you, same here. Nice talking to you. Nice talking to you.
Thanks. Just one point I wanted to add in conclusion. I think we talked about and focused quite a lot on career, right? Life is not just about career. It is about, there's a lot to your personal life as well. And so happiness matters quite a lot, which is why I keep focusing on purpose. Anyway, the one thing that I believe people in their 30s and 40s should do, maybe late 20s as well, is meet a financial planner. Start your planning, right? Because, especially talking about the kind of disruption and layoffs, you need to have a plan for what you're going to do, and it is only on the basis of some good financials that you will be able to take a risk, right? And 30s is the age when one starts to take the responsibility for the family, starts to take responsibility for several other personal aspects. So let's not just look at career, let's not just look at money, let's not just look at growth. The focus has to be on happiness, on work-life balance. There's quite a lot. And which is why I don't envy people in their 30s to 40s at all. There's a lot that they're going through. Anyway, thanks a lot, Govind.
The last one was really good. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.